Sometimes parts of animals or plants that lived long ago can be found today. These are called fossils. An animal bone is an example of a fossil. Fossils can be found all over the world. Scientists look for fossils to help them learn about the past. Some fossils are on display at museums. You'll read about a girl and her dog who discovered fossils from the dog that dug for dinosaurs. Think about this as you read, or talk about it with someone. Talk about it to yourself. Have you or anyone you know ever seen a fossil? What kind of fossil was it? And where was it seen? Discuss this with people around you. Write about it. Ask if you ask questions if you don't understand something. A biography. This is going to tell us about a person. A biography tells about events in a person's life. As you read, look for information about why a person is important. Why are they important? Information about why a person is important, events in time order. Shirley Ray Redmond. Meet the author. At her home in New Mexico, Shirley Ray Redmond begins her day by waking up early and watching the many birds that come to see the feeders in her yard. Then she's ready to sit down and start writing. She's obviously a really good writer if she perseveres in writing. Meet the illustrator, Stacy Schuett. Even as a child, Stacy Schuett wanted to be an artist or a writer. I was a dreamy kind of little kid who loved to make stuff up, she says. She has illustrated many books, including ones about pirates and trees. As you read, your essential question, or what you should be thinking about frequently, is how can you learn about animals that lived long ago? Also think about all the beautiful things that made them special. A long time ago, there was a little dog named Trey. He was black and white all over. He had friendly brown eyes and a very wiggly tail. Trey lived in England. Trey was a real dog, and this is an honestly true story about him. Trey. Trey. Trey is a dog. Why is someone going to write a story about him? I guess his biography is about Trey, the dog that dug for dinosaurs. Trey loved two things most in the whole world. First, he loved Mary Anning. She was 12 years old and lived with her family in a small cottage near the beach in Lyme Regis. Well, that's where they're from, Lyme Regis. Secondly, Trey loved going with Mary to dig for fossils. They lived at the beach, and that's where they dug for dinosaur fossils. Interesting. So what are fossils anyway? They are the remains of animals and plants that died a long time ago. When a leaf or bone gets pressed between layers of sea mud, it leaves an imprint. After many years, the mud hardens to rock. Oh, a fossil can just be an imprint. It's a leaf or a bone. If it's a leaf, it leaves an imprint on it. Trey and Mary knew that they would find the very best fossils high up on the cliffs around the beach. They climbed up there every day. Trey sniffed the rocks. Sniff, sniff. He pawed the dirt. Scratch, scratch. Mary used a small hammer and chisel. Tap, tap, tap. Why? Sniff, sniff. Scratch, scratch. Tap, tap, tap. These important words describe to you what's going on in the story and help you understand what Mary and Trey are doing. With these fossils, Mary carefully cut fossils. With these tools, Mary carefully cut fossils out of the cliff, just as her father had shown her. Trey watched as she placed the fossils in her basket. Most of them looked like seashells. Mary and Trey sold them as a souvenir to the tourists that came by a stagecoach to swim at the beach near their home. So is this story about Trey or Mary? I think it's about both, and how they would always find fossils. One day, Trey and Mary discovered some very large bones sticking out of the rocks. They were huge! Trey growled and tried to dig the bones out. Mary used her hands to brush away the loose dirt. Trey, we've discovered a monster! she declared. The bones were much too big for Trey and Mary to remove by themselves. I'll go for help, Mary said. You stay here, Trey. Trey barked loudly and sat down in front of the bones. He was a very good guard dog. Oh, so I guess Trey would growl whenever he found bones. This is where the story begins to happen, I guess, if they found a monster, fossils of a monster. But before they're just digging up really small fossils and they would sell them to all the tourists. Now what are they going to do with this big fossil? How on earth are they going to excavate this? How are they going to take it out of the rock? I wonder. Let's read on. Mary ran all the way back to town and asked some grown-ups to help her. Trey and I have found something really special on the cliff, she told them. Just wait and see. When the men saw the giant rib bones in the side of the cliff, they were amazed. What a beast, they cried. Look at those sharp teeth. Is it a crocodile? One man said, or a stubby whale? You don't know what it is, Mary admitted, but we know it's something special. Don't we, Trey? Trey yiped and wagged his tail. So she called a bunch of people from the city or from the town. They came out and helped her out with it. They didn't know what it was. They were all asking a ton of questions. A rich man who lived nearby heard about the sea monster. He hurried to see it for himself. I'll buy it, he cried. I'll give it to the British Museums in London. I guess you have to have a lot of money to do that. But he knows he's going to get a lot more money when he gives it to a museum. So someone's offering to help them out. Do you know what it is? Mary asked. It is called an ichthyosaur. The man told her. That means fish lizard, he explained. It's like a dinosaur with fins. Oh, so it wasn't as they thought it was a crocodile. They thought it was a crocodile or a stubby whale. But this rich man knew what it was and told them that it was a dinosaur fossil, an ichthyosaur. Amazing news spread about the gigantic fish lizard. So an ichthyosaur is a gigantic fish lizard, and a dog and a little girl who found it. Ooh, I bet they're going to... Oh, hold on. Before I even read, I see a bunch of people all around them. I didn't see that before. Does that mean they became famous for digging up that fish lizard, that ichthyosaur? Soon many strangers came to Lyme Regis, where Mary and Trey lived. They all wanted to hunt for fossils too. The men wore tall top hats. The women wore frilly bonnets. They carried pretty umbrellas called parasols. Mary shook her head and smiled. She rubbed Trey's soft ears. They watched the strangers together. They don't have the right tools, Mary whispered. They are wearing the wrong kinds of shoes. Aren't they silly, Trey? Trey yiped and chased his tail. Mary's understanding that in order to find fossils, you have to be dressed correctly. Now all these strange folk, they're not dressed right. They're not wearing the right clothes. They're not wearing the right shoes. What'll happen next? Will they find all kinds of good fossils? Will they find all sorts of goodies? Curious scientists visited Lyme Regis too. One man came from the University of Oxford. His name was William Buckland. He went to the old carpenter's shop where Mary and Trey sold their fossils. Can you show me where you found your ichthyosaur, young lady? He asked politely. Do you think you can find the exact spot again? Trey can find it, Mary boasted. Is being boastful a good thing? Well, sometimes it is, especially if you know things. Mary knew that Trey can do the job. Because this curious scientist wanted to know more. Together, Mary and Mr. Buckland followed the little dog across the beach and sat up to the cliffs. Trey sniffed the rocks. Sniff, sniff. Again, he pawed the dirt. Scratch, scratch. Suddenly, he yiped. Then he sat down. What did he do before he sat down? He first sniffed, scratched, and yiped. It was like, or something like that. Then he sat down. So he sat down where the fossils were. Mary pointed. It was the exact place where she had discovered the strange fish lizard. What an intelligent dog, Mr. Buckland declared. Trey wagged his tail. And he paused. Trey and Mary continued to dig for fossils. They were very careful. Mary watched for falling rocks like her dad told her. Trey looked out for storms and high tides. Then one day they discovered another giant creature. Look, Trey, Mary cried. Is it a sea dragon? They were very careful. Her dad knew what she was doing, obviously, because it says that Mary watched for falling rocks like her dad told her. And Trey looked out for the storms. I guess he sniffed for those storms. Trey sniffed the skeleton and snapped at it with his teeth. The creature had a long neck. Its backbone was like a humped turtle shell. Instead of feet and legs, it had 4 large paddles. I guess that's why Mary thought it was a sea dragon, because it didn't have feet, but it looked like paddles. But it wasn't a sea dragon. Mr. Buckland called it a plesiosaur. Those scientists, they have names for everything. I wonder how do they come up with those names. That looks like a bird of some sort. A pelican, maybe. Or is it? It's a fossil. Could it be a pelican or something else? You try to sound out that word. One day, Trey and Mary found a fossil that no one in England had ever found before. This one had huge bony wings like a bat and a long, sharp jaw. Trey growled. It looks like a gigantic flying lizard, Mary declared. The scientists thought so too, and that's why they named it pterodactyl. There's a name. And there's a name again. That means lizard with wings. A pterodactyl is a lizard with wings. Did anyone want to know that? Now you know. Knowing is half the battle. That means lizard with wings. Over the years, Trey, Mary, and Mr. Buckland became good friends. They showed him where to find the best fossils in Lyme Regis. Again, where are they from? Lyme Regis. And where is Lyme Regis? On the coast, by the ocean, on the beach. They became close friends. Why? Because they became scientists. All of them were. Trey and Mary. Mr. Buckland as well. Mr. Buckland brought books about dinosaurs for Mary. He brought beef bones for Trey. Mary, with Trey on her lap, studied her books every day. Mr. Buckland obviously cared for Mary if he wanted her to learn more about dinosaurs. So he brought her a bunch of books. That's how you learn around the world around you, through books. Books open up many new doors. When Trey's whiskers turned gray and Mary was all grown up, they still collected fossils and sold them in the old carpenter shop. There were boxes and baskets filled with fossils on the floor and on the shelves. Some of the fossil creatures were so big they couldn't fit through the door. Some children and tourists stopped in to buy fossils and ancient sand dollars, or tiny fish and curly shells. Many scientists came to the shop to buy fossils too. They brought carts and wagons to haul away the really large ones. It all takes place in that shop. Most of these fossils were sold in that shop. I wonder if we'd go to that town, if it still exists. Will that shop still be there? But many people, not just scientists, went, but everyone went. The scientists took the fossils. The tourists took the smaller ones, but the scientists, the bigger ones. Trey and Mary Anning became very famous. Why did they become famous? Because they discovered dinosaurs? They discovered flying lizards? Crocodiles? No! They discovered fossils of dinosaurs that lived long ago. Today, if you go to the Natural History Museum in London, you can see the large fossils they discovered together. You can also see a famous painting of Mary holding her fossil basket and Trey, the dog that dug for dinosaurs. Oh, so maybe that town doesn't exist anymore, but All the things they found, you can see at the Natural History Museum in London.